Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 390. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're honored to have with us the internationally celebrated and award-winning Vermont author and founder of Circus Smirkus, Rob Mermin.
Hi there.
How's
Glad
it
to be
going?
here.
This is exciting because I usually interview rootstock authors. And when I saw your name pop up as you just put out a book called Circle of Sawdust a few months ago, and I saw it was Rob Mermin, who's the founder of Circus Smirkus. I mean, so it's great to talk to you, and it's great because this isn't even your first book. This is your third book that you've written?
Well, the first two books were specifically about Circus Smirkus.
Right.
With a lot of pictures and photos and telling the story of Circus Smirkus, how I started it, and fun adventures throughout the years. It's been actually 37 years now since the founding of Circus Smirkus.
Okay.
I know that's like a lifetime. But this book, this is a different book. This is not a specifically Smirkus book. It's more about my early adventures running off to the circus in Europe and everything that led up to the founding of Circus Smirkus.
Well, and so and that was the question. So, what inspired you to run off and join the circus? But that's like a standard trope is to like run off and join the circus. But you actually ran off and joined the circus back in 1969.
Yeah, well, I never dreamed of running off to the circus. I never dreamed of wanting to be a clown when I grew up. That was way off my radar. When adults ask kids, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" My answer was never to be a clown or to be in the circus, not at all. In fact, I would say that's the wrong question that adults ask. It's not
Really?
what you want to be when you grow up. For me, it was more like, who do you want to be when you become an adult? Who do you want to be like? Who are your role models? What kind of person do you want to be when you grow up? That was more of my style. It wasn't about being a clown or an astronaut or a doctor or a vet. I didn't have any of those dreams because, I was a kid. What do you know when you're a kid? Right.
Well, it was like somebody pointed out, like the reason why adults ask kids what they want to be when they grow up because they're trying to get ideas. So it's like we're always looking to see what we're going to be doing. And
well,
and
my idea, the idea that I had as a kid, which I remember very well, was I can't answer that question. What do I be when I want to grow up? I'm just a kid. I haven't seen the world yet. So my answer to myself was, okay, I got to go out and see the world, and then I'd be able to answer the question. So I think that's maybe one of the things that prompted me to run off to join the circus later on, because I had no money. I just had dreams of discovering what the world was about. And I thought, well, I had some skills. I had taught myself how to juggle. I taught myself how to balance on a wire. And then I thought, if I could get a job with a little traveling circus, maybe that would pay my way to be able to see the world. So I basically read up on what that world was all about, and then I went off to seek it.
What are some of the more significant differences you've noticed between European and American circuses during your career?
Gosh, that's a huge question. In fact, when I finished writing the book, I realized that there were 4 or 5 themes that popped out to me about the book. One was that circus has traditionally been considered kind of a sleazy operation in this country. People would equate it with carnivals and carnies and circus people, and clowns were scary, because of Hollywood and Stephen King. If there's a serial killer out there, he wears a clown mask. What's that all about? So clowns over here are scary. Mimes over here are considered kind of insulting. and over here, the attitude about animals in the circus is that animals are treated cruelly. There's cruelty to animals. And in the European circus, I found just the opposite of all of that.
Wow.
Clowns were respected as artists. They were beloved by the audiences. Circuses, far from being the sleazy operations that had a reputation over here, circuses were passed on from generation to generation. So there might be 5, 6, 7 generations of circus owners
Wow.
where I was so impressed with the children of circus artists over there. A 10-year-old would know how to speak 3 languages. He would know geography because they travel with their parents and uncles and siblings and grandparents, and they work together. And it's a very disciplined and traditional art form in the European style.
Mm.
And that's what I wanted to find out, that kind of sense of tradition and community. And that's basically what I wrote about in the book, my wild
Right.
and crazy adventures, but at the same time, finding a real traditional and welcoming community in the
Right.
circus world.
Well, so with Circus Smirkus, you started that in, as you say, 1987.
Right.
Um, so how has Circus Smirkus evolved since its inception um, over the last 37 years?
Well, one thing that has stayed the same is the style. It's
Okay.
a very friendly circus, and it's performed and basically run by teenagers from around the country. And what has evolved during my tenure there, I no longer direct or run the circus. I've passed it on to younger generations. But one thing that has evolved is the sense of worldwide circus community. We've had coaches and kids come over to join us in the ring from something like 30, 35 different countries over the years.
Wow.
So that has become kind of parallel to the adventures I write about in my book, because circus is really a worldwide subculture, I would call it. Uh, on the fringe of society, yes, and I'm talking about traditional traveling tent circuses. And I would say some of my more memorable events during my time running off to the circus in Europe. For example, I had a 7-month season in Sweden where we went from southern Sweden all the way up to the northern reaches of the country, up into Lapland above the Arctic Circle. And it was just fabulous because we'd be driving with all the trucks and the tent trucks and the caravans of people from different countries. We would be driving up the highway, and the highway turned into a 2-lane road, and that turned into a 1-lane road going through the woods in Lapland. And I'm thinking, where in the world are we going to find an audience in the middle of the boonies in Lapland in the woods? But we came to a clearing in the woods. We set up the tent. The show's at 8 o'clock. And sure enough, 7:45, you hear this rustling through the woods. 1,500 Laplanders came, filled the tent. We had a great show. 2 hours
Wow.
later, they all disappeared through the woods again, and there we were, taking down the tent in the midnight sun. It was just fabulous, fabulous.
Wow.
That's circus life. Yeah.
And so, yeah, what made you decide to make Circus Smirkus specific for children and not, say, like an adult themed program?
Well, that corresponds to what I just talked about with the 10-year-old circus kid. I was
Right.
so impressed by the maturity of kids who have grown up in the traditional circus. And I thought, let me try to give that experience to American kids where they're working together with adults as colleagues in the ring.
Mm.
It's not just teacher and student, but we're working on this program together as colleagues. And I would perform in the ring with the kids, and we were really partners, and that made all the difference, I think, in making the Circus Smirkus style well known.
Talk to us a little bit now about, let's talk about a little bit about Circle of Sawdust. This, in essence, would you consider this more or less your autobiography?
I would say it's like the subtitle says, it's a circus memoir of mud, myth, mirth, mayhem, and magic. So I would consider it my circus memoir, but it's only book one So this is about the circus adventures when I was a young man. The next book that I want to start writing actually is about the art of mime and my
Mm,
teacher, the legacy of Marcel Marceau, who is my mentor for most of my adult life. And I want to do for the art of mime what I hope this book does for the art of circus, is that it gives people uh, a backstage, a background of what really happens in the art of circus. And I want to write about the art of mime because people have a kind of a distorted view of what the art of mime is too. So I want to set that record straight in my next
right.
book.
And so, I guess what have you learned about yourself writing this memoir that you through this self reflection? What have you learned about yourself through this writing process?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, when you write a memoir, you can't help but learn something about who you are by what comes out of your pen.
Right.
And most of my performing career, I worked as a mime. So here I was using words, and I found that I would say three lessons that kept on popping up in my mind was that with all the ups and downs that we go through in our lives, nothing in our life is smooth. You have
Mm,
down periods and up periods, and I found that if I kept a sense of adventure about life, that was one thing. And if I kept a sense of curiosity, that got me through a lot of downtime. Plus, the third thing would be a sense of humor.
mm,
So those three things, adventure and curiosity and humor, I think come out in the stories I tell in the book. And it kind of made an impression on me that I had to make the book a personal story. It's not just about
right.
circus at all. It's very personal. And that was important for me to put down on paper.
Right. And so and a part of it too is like, in order to tell a good story, you have to have tension and adventure, and you have to see some failures because the failures make the successes so much stronger. Was there a particular failure or challenge that you had in your life that you personally didn't want to put in, but you knew you had to because it would really good in the book?
Well, yeah. When I got to the point of trying to start Circus Smirkus, uh, it took me years to create Circus Smirkus Company up in the Northeast Kingdom, and I failed. I lost my
Mm,
shirt, lost my savings, um, for various reasons that I do write about in the book. But I failed to the point of saying, well, wait a minute, I've been carrying this dream around for years of starting my own little traveling circus with kids. And I failed. I just couldn't pull it off. Maybe it's the wrong dream. And that was devastating. When
mm,
you carry a dream around and you think, well, maybe it's the wrong dream. Maybe I've been barking up the wrong tree all these years. But finally, when I was able to get the circus started off the ground, I realize when young people come up to me and they say, Rob, I got a dream. I want to start my own company, my own troupe, my own. I look at them, the young folks, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wish them great luck. All I can do is encourage them and tell them it's going to be a bumpy road if you have a dream, but don't give up on it. Don't compromise. I think that's the
mm,
word I learned for myself is don't compromise your dream. That was one of the main lessons I learned.
right.
Keep at it.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. What would you say as well as how has Circus Smirkus evolved post COVID?
Well, actually, it kept on going through COVID. Uh, the one year they didn't have a tour, but they had the beginners camp running,
Hmm.
and they had a lot of safety precautions, of course. But uh, Circus Smirkus kept on going. It's
Oh, good.
don't stop. If you have something going, figure out how to keep it going. Especially if it's your dream. In the early years of Smirkus, I used to think that when people said, "Well, Rob, you reached your dream," and I'm just thinking, I'm shaking my head, thinking, "What? What are you talking about?" The work is harder than ever. A dream is like a hungry puppy; it just doesn't stop. It's always hungry and wanting more and more and more.
Mm.
So, you never really quite reach a dream, I would say. If you have a lifelong dream, it's ongoing. It's your life, your whole life.
So talk to us a little bit about the book itself. When as you put it together, how much editing process did you have to do? Was there any stories in there that didn't make the cut that you wished you kept in?
Actually, I put in more than I figured I
Oh,
would
really?
put in. I worked with an editor, uh, and she was very good about, for example, moving things around. Like I would have half a chapter, and she would say, "Don't you think this would go better in the previous chapter or in the introduction?" And so she was very good with that, as well as being uh, a good technical advisor. Though we did have some discussions, like she didn't like my use of semicolons. I said, "Well, yeah, but wait a minute. Look at Mark Twain. He loved using semicolons." So there was that kind of discussion back and forth with an editor. But she was very, very helpful, and um, there was a lot that I wanted to put in that I didn't, because I would be saving it for my next book about the art of mime and my teacher, Marceau.
Right.
So I did put some of that in there, a couple of stories about Marceau in this book, sort of as a teaser,
Okay.
because
So it's
Marceau actually did perform with Circus Smirkus. He did a benefit show for us.
really
He came to Middlebury, Vermont, and he performed in the ring.
wow.
It was
I mean,
fabulous.
is there any other? I'm really curious now. Is like Circus Smirkus is a Vermont institution. Is there other states that have similar circuit youth circuits programs that you
Ah,
know of?
well, that's another good question. When I started Smirkus back in '87, there were no circus programs. There were no circus schools in this country, and summer circus camps. But since then, since Smirkus really got started, they've proliferated. They're everywhere.
Hmm.
Circus camps across the country and circus schools out, Chicago and San Francisco and Atlanta. And there's a circus school down in Brattleboro now and year round.
Really?
So
Okay.
they're everywhere, and beginner circus camps almost in every state. So
Hmm.
Smirkus was really kind of a forerunner to what they call the youth circus movement in this country.
Parents or guardians are maybe having a discussion on uh, what their kids are going to do this summer. Uh, what would be some of the benefits of doing a beginner circus program? What are some of the educational, physical, and emotional benefits of being a part of a program like this?
Yeah, well, good. A lot of summer camps, they focus on wilderness things or sports. The nice thing about a circus camp is that it's non-competitive. It's more
Hmm.
about, first of all, developing your own individual skills at your own pace. It's not in competition with anybody else, and to you learn a lot of teamwork because you're working in the ring with other kids and coaches, and it's very physical. But the main thing is that it's non-competitive. We've had a lot of young gymnasts who've been training a lot of years in the gymnastics studio, and when they come and they try circus at the circus camp, you see this huge relief on their faces that it's not about points and competition with the other gymnasts. No, it's about teamwork, and they just love that aspect of circus, and so I really focus on promoting that aspect.
This isn't the only type of writing you do. You also write plays, correct?
I've written one play that was first produced last year. We just had another Vermont tour this year called Act 39, and you can find information on that on my website.
Hmm.
It's there's a lot of well, the story. It's based on a true story about my neighbor, my friend Bill, who was my best friend at the time. This was 10 years ago, and he suddenly developed pancreatic cancer and was told he had 6 months to live.
Wow.
Boom, just like that. And he asked me, we learned about Act 39, which was Vermont's death with dignity law, uh, where medical aid in dying became legal. And he asked me if I would help him go through that process when it was time.
Hmm.
And, reluctantly, but willingly, I said, sure, and the play is about that. It's about the medical aid in dying law, but it's certainly not a downer. There's a lot of circus tricks and laughter and games which is again based on a true story. I would show my neighbor new circus tricks that I'd be working on, or magic tricks, and he would come over and just be delighted by all that stuff. And so the last 6 months of his life, I'd be coming up with new circus tricks and magic to show him, and all of that is in the play. A lot of fun, actually.
Wow. How is it? How is it different writing a memoir as compared to a play? How's your creative process different?
Oh, it was actually a lot of fun writing the play because it's all dialogue.
Okay.
And I started in my career in high school, I was doing theater before I ever ran off to the circus. So I love the idea of writing a theatrical piece that had theatrical, innovations on the stage and working with actors. It was a lot of fun. Actors are very different than circus people, I will say.
Have you ever thought about doing some juxtaposed Circus Smirkus version for like summer theater for kids?
I have thought about that. At one point, I thought about starting a Smirkus mime troupe,
Okay.
which would be great fun. So who knows? Maybe that's in the cards.
Right. Well, and so where did the name Circus Smirkus come from?
My mother.
Really?
It was when I first had the crazy idea to run off and join the circus. I said, Mom, because I'd been reading, in the National Geographic about traditional circus families and how exciting that lifestyle was. I said, Mom, I'm going to go off and join a circus and find out what that world is all about and learn how to make children laugh. And she just looked at me for a second and, in a very Jewish way, she said, Circus Smirkus, go get a job in a real job, like in a bank. So I remember that years later, Circus Smirkus. I took the H out and became
Yeah.
Circus Smirkus. So it's kind of a Yiddish word, actually, in a sense.
Right. And
Circus.
then the word smirk is and the word smirk meaning smile is in it. So you
Yep.
can't yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's nuances to that. Yep.
Putting on your future hat, where do you see where do you see beginner circus camps in the age of AI in the next 10 years? Where do you see circuses in the future?
Circus is becoming more and more popular,
Hmm.
and it's proliferating. And students go to the circus school up in Canada, which was originally part of Cirque du Soleil, and they go off and start their own troops. And Smirkus alumni have gone around the world performing everywhere in big shows. So I think that it's the acceptance and allure of live performance that is not going to go away. Circus in this country has existed for 250 years.
Wow.
Through, when TV and radio and films came in, oh, well, circus is going to die out. No. So it's the immediacy. And that's the difference also between circus and theater, is that circus skills are right in front of you. And, there's nothing fake about it. There's nothing,
Right.
theatrical. It's real stuff. It's real physical uh, accomplishment by the circus performers. And I think audience, audiences will always enjoy that and flock to it.
So Rob, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where's the best place they could go to?
Uh, my website, robmermin.com.
Okay.
And I'll start putting up more information there as we go along about different programs I'm going to be involved in. I mean, one of the things I'm jumping back into is working with folks who have Parkinson's and
Mm,
teaching them circus skills and mime skills, because I find that I was diagnosed 10 years ago with Parkinson's. My neurologist says he thinks I'm a jump ahead of the game because of my training.
wow.
I'm aware of movement. I'm aware of uh, physical. Um, when I'm not moving correctly, I'm aware of it, so then I could correct my movements. And that
Mm,
I believe that comes from the mime training. So I've
mm.
been working with folks with Parkinson's and teaching them mime and circus games and juggling, and we're having a grand old time with that. So that's one of my latest projects.
And like you say, people can see all of this information on robmermin.com. The circus, the mime, Circus Smirkus. You get your YouTube channel link on there and everything. So listen, Rob, you're gonna have to come back on when you have your second book out.
That's a deal. I
Well, thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much, Rob. This was been great talking to you.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.